Our party officers present, all chairman of the Sour Laventille Corporation, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago gathered here in your large numbers in the Croisee and at home listening by the thousands. But if I continue like this, I can go all night. So please excuse me if I get into the business of the evening, because time is of the essence. There's so much to say to you that I don't know where to begin. But I don't have a mailbox as large as or as accessible as the chairman of tonight's proceedings. But let me begin by pointing out to you that we are in a period of twilight in Trinidad and Tobago, where you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, are going to have great difficulty differentiating and discerning truth from lies. Because at the same time, the government is spending a lot of your money directly and indirectly and getting the police to tell you that crime is going down in preparation for a general election. I am hearing there now a few minutes ago the chairman of tonight's proceedings quoting from the campaign manager of the government that one of the challenges in Trinidad and Tobago is escalating crime. So the government is admitting on one hand that crime is escalating. Now you, the people, will have no difficulty knowing that that is the truth, because you live that every day and every night. But then the government's propaganda machine, out of the mouths of government officers and paid bloggers and hacks, are telling you with diagram and audio that crime is going down in Trinidad and Tobago. And that is just a little synopsis of the state where we are today in Trinidad and Tobago. I have just come out of an election where the post of political leader of the PNM equals applicant for the post of Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago was contested within the party, the PNM, and any party member could have contested that position. But as I put myself up seeking the support of party members, because only party members could have voted on that in that election, I said to party members, I am going to run for this position on my record. On my record. You have observed me, you have worked with me, you have seen my actions, you have seen my inactions, you have seen my temperament, you have seen my successes, you have seen my failure, you have seen my pain, and you have seen my victories. Judge me on my record. And of course, those citizens in Trinidad and Tobago who were qualified as PNM members to come to the polls, they came out to the polls on May 18th, and they voted resoundingly, and tonight I stand here as the re-elected political leader of the PNM. I campaigned on my record. I want to commend that to the government of Trinidad and Tobago, to the Kamla Prasad Bissessas, to the Anand Ram Logans, to the Rudal Munilals, and to the Rodney Charles. Because tonight here in the Croisee, as leader of the PNM, I make this declaration on behalf of all the people of Trinidad and Tobago, regardless of your race, your color, your creed, your class, or your job entitlement, that the next general election in Trinidad and Tobago will be contested on the record of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Because when we elected you, and by we I mean all the people of Trinidad and Tobago, we agreed that those with the majority will run the affairs of state. We didn't elect you because of your religion, because of your gender, because of your race, because of where you come from in the country, because in this country is equal opportunity open to all. So a prime minister could have come from Castara, one could have come from Port of Spain, one could have come from San Fernando, one come from Pinal. You could have been a woman and you're prime minister. You could have been a man and prime minister. That is not important. When you are elected as a citizen to serve all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And when election time comes around, you will not be allowed to resort to invoking your racial background or your religious background or where you come from. You will have to account to the people of Trinidad and Tobago for how you've run the country. Case closed. So tonight, I want to spend a few minutes, because I will not be doing this again until whenever, if ever. I want to let you all know that we of the PNM, we will be ensuring that the issues on which you vote in this country are the issues that concern you, and you hired a group of citizens to address those issues, and you will vote on how successful they have been in addressing those issues. So when we come to invoke race, let me explain to you. And come to attack me, let me explain to Rodney Charles and Shambalyo Singh and Robin Jamunan. Watch me good if you make me out. I come from Mason Hall in Tobago. I represent the people of Diego Martin West. And I do so as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, not on my race, not on my religion, but on my competence and my basic human decency as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. And if you don't know my real background, ask somebody who will tell you. Ask them who Joe Rowley was. Joe Rowley was a man in Mason Hall, a humble farmer. And his wife discovered that her brother left Tobago, Mason Hall, and went to Pinal and had a child with a woman in Pinal of East Indian descent. And you know, in those days there was trouble. My grandfather's wife, in the house in which I grew up, left Tobago on the boat that took 12 hours to reach Trinidad, made her way down to Pinal, and found the woman and found the child, and brought the child into our household. And my grandfather and my grandmother raised that child as if it were theirs. And that child taught me to read. So in case you all don't know, that is my background. I never heard of racialism until I come to Trinidad. And not Tobago thing. I grew up in Tobago where people of East Indian descent were Tobagoans first. And Tobagoans always. And if there's a problem in Trinidad about race, those who are advancing it are the first ones to watch. Watch them very carefully. I want to remind you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, that as opposition leader, I was invited to the Diwali Nagar. I accepted the invitation. And politicians castigated me and those who invited me. Remember that? We will not let them forget that. And as for bringing out your friends to come and tell you that the PNM developed this country based on North versus South, with the border being the Croisee River. Let me correct the records tonight, because there are young people in this country who may hear that and think it is true and make their decisions about this country based on that. Let me remind the people of Trinidad and Tobago who heard that talk at the UNC or wherever they were, that function, where the leader of the Bahasaba, his speech was about division in this country, and where the PNM divide this country by developing North and not developing South. Well, I'm from Tobago. I represent Diego Martin. And when all the people who had their stake in the sugar industry were pulling up their stakes and going away to leave the people of central Trinidad, south of the Croisee River, abandoned with no hope, it was a PNM government in 1975 that bought up all those estates and created Croisee Limited and spent tens of billions of dollars on it right up until 1992, when the industry died internationally. And who were the beneficiaries of that? Not the people of North Trinidad. When the oil companies found cheap oil abroad, and they were shutting down the wells and pulling out of Trinidad and Tobago, leaving those who had an income and an interest from those industries, It was a PNM government that used the resources of all the people of this country and bought out Texaco, bought out Shell, bought out Petrotrin, and who were the beneficiaries of that? The people of South Trinidad. All the jobs in those industries are the best jobs in Trinidad and Tobago today. The best jobs in this country are the jobs that are had by people in the energy sector and the oil sector in South Trinidad. I represent 29,000 electors in Diego Martin West. I don't know one of them that works in the oil industry. I came from Tobago, where there are 2 seats in the parliament. I don't know a single Tobagoan that works in the energy sector in the south, except that I knew that there were about 3 or 4 managers who were Petrotrin, and this government fired them when they came in because they got the jobs when these people were out of office. And you want to come and tell me about North-South development? We build schools in this country. I want to ask the leader of the Mahasabha tonight, where in this country are there any people, citizens, school children, who don't have access to a secondary school in this country? There was a time, even in my day, when the secondary schools were mainly in Port of Spain and 2 in San Fernando, and the rest of the country had none. Today, all over the country, from Seajas to Charlottesville, from Karapichama to San Gandhi, secondary schools are available. The only constituency that does not have a government secondary school is my own Diego Martin West. And I have to listen to that foolishness about separate. When this government, after saving the existing oil industry that belonged to foreigners, when the PNM got the oil windfall and decided to invest it in the country's future, you wouldn't hear that from them. Let me repeat that. When the PNM decided to invest the windfall in the country's future, to build an industrial estate which we now call Point Lisas, it was built in Cuba. And when we decided to build another one, it was built in La Brea. It stayed dormant for 6 years under UNC government. It took a PNM government to come back into office to restart Labidco, and today Labidco is in fact a functioning industrial estate. And when we went to build a 3rd one in Union Estate, as I speak to you now, they have shut down the one in Union Estate because the first project there was the aluminum smelter with others to follow. They shut that down. That is their record. And they left a power station there costing $2 billion with nothing to do. Today, you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, you're paying $69 million a month for power you don't need because they shut down the 3rd industrial estate. And I have to listen to the head of the Mahasabha, chaired on by the Prime Minister, who tells him, talk boy talk, talk boy talk. Instead of correcting his misinformation and his divisive behavior, he's egged on by the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. But they don't care, you know. She goes down to be, but remember, you know, there was a by-election in St. Joseph, in Chaguanas West. An internal UNC fight between Juan and Khadija Amin. Remember that? She brought out the same head of the Mahasabha, garlanded him, came there, kissed his feet, and married the candidate. That didn't change the price of nothing. They lost 5-1. She's not learning. She comes back now and tells him, I have brought for you 2 checks. This is the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. I have brought for you 2 checks. Well, I have no problem with the government supporting the Mahasabha and celebrating Indian Arrival Day. But picture the scene. The Prime Minister is the post lady. She's brought 2 checks. Your money. She never told how much the money is. When he got on stage, he said, it is $750,000. And she said, it is to celebrate Indian Arrival Day. You know what he said? I spending that money on something else. On the schools, something like that. Now all of you here who are public servants, you know that if you have money allocated for a particular purpose, you have to have specific approval to spend it on something else. Otherwise you'll be guilty of misallocation and possible misappropriation. But the Prime Minister could walk with the check, and in front of her, her partner could tell her, I intend to misspend this money. And she tell him, talk boy talk. But that is only a little microcosm of how the whole country is being run. The whole country. I don't have a whole lot of time tonight, but let me just give you a few examples of how your country is being run. We spent over $330 billion so far. We have nothing to show for it. The construction that they're pointing to, busy building hospital and build, that's on loan funds to come. That is not the budget I'm talking about. That's additional money. But as they do that, listen how they've been spending your money. There's a building in East Port of Spain called Apsara Restaurant. Ever heard about it? The government, somebody in the government, I don't know who yet, but I intend to find out. I want to find out and let you know. The government goes to the owners of Apsara and express an interest to buy the building. And I'm using the word building nicely. It really means old house. They had it valued. It was valued at $16 million. NIB, acting for the government, on behalf of the government and people of Trinidad and Tobago. They go and it's valued at $16 million. So you want the property, you're going to buy it. Nothing wrong with that. So you buy it for $16 million and you proceed to use it. If you are sane and if you're not NIB under this government. You know what they did? With your pension money, with your NIB money, they bought the building for $37 million, even though the valuation was $16 million. And you think they stopped there? They then spend $7 million to renovate the building. And then they rent it back to the person they buy it from for a few $1,000s a month. For 5 years, with an option for another 5 years, and somewhere in there, the owner has the option to buy it back from them. I want you, when you go home tonight, to try and figure that out. When you could sell your house, get the buyer to renovate the house, then you could rent it back from the buyer. And if you want it back, after you get all that money from the buyer, you could buy back the house. And you could say, okay, that is NIB. But what about British American in the CLICO group of business? And I'm putting you on notice tonight that strange things are happening with the CLICO assets that we have secured and we've paid for. But we'll come back to that another night. Suffice it to say that British American was part of that whole arrangement of the CLICO collapse. They value the shares of British American as being worthless. The government bought them for a small amount of money, just under $1 million. They say to be able to have the voting rights of the shares, but the shares have no value. They went and they value the company, the portfolio of the company. The valuation done by professional valuers, which should be the basis of the purchase of this collapsed company, was $34 million. That's US dollars, eh? 34 million US dollars. The government of Trinidad and Tobago buy it for over 50 million US dollars. I want to ask the Prime Minister tonight and the Minister of Finance tonight, who got the additional US dollars between 34 and 51? And if you're spending your own money and the valuation says 34 million US dollars, will you pay 51 million US dollars for it? That is how your money being spent. And I don't have time to go into the details tonight, but I simply want to ask, how many of you ever seen $700,000? When a minister of government coming in or going out of government gets 2 checks, 500,000 and 200,000. At the appropriate time, we'll ask them what for, and you will know who the minister is. And then you will know how they feather in their nest. But I small potato. Small potato. You recall in, when was it? 2011, this government tried to get the president to fire the board of the central bank. Besides the governor, there were 8 members of the board of central bank. The government tried to get the president to remove them. The president refused. You know what this UNC government did? They appointed 9 people to the board. Because the law had said how many you could appoint. They didn't put a limit. So they realized a little loophole in the law. There was nothing in the law to prevent them from doing that. So they appointed 9 people to the board and made the board a board of 17. So the control they wanted to have by changing the board, because the president didn't agree, they didn't accept the president's control of the situation. They went around the presidential control and appointed 9 people to the board. They now have 17, and they appointed their own governor. Because you may recall, when Governor Williams retired, the deputy governor of the central bank was one of the brightest economists in the region, Dr. Shelton Nichols. This government and the arrangements did not even give Dr. Nichols an opportunity to apply for the job where he was the deputy and the logical replacement of Mr. Williams. And there were other senior people in the bank who they didn't consider. They brought in the man who is now the current governor of the central bank. And at the time we objected, because we knew that this was an area of high skill, requires certain temperament, and it ought not to be a political football as it was being made at the time. Today, many of you go into the banks, you can't get, I heard this morning from one station, somebody went to get $15 to pay a bill in a bank in Trinidad and Tobago, and the bank told them they could not get it. Many of you have children abroad, you have to pay their upkeep and their bills. You go to the bank, you can't get US dollars. There's a raging black market going on in Trinidad and Tobago today, because if you want the US dollars and somebody has it, you have to pay what they're asking for it to get it. For 21 years, we didn't have that problem in Trinidad and Tobago. Because when we floated the currency and we put an arrangement in place through the central bank to manage and allocate foreign exchange to the commercial banks to ensure that you, the householder, you, the small business owner, you, the medium business owner, we, the country, we can have a supply of US dollars or whatever you need to conduct your business. For 21 years it went well. But in secret, in April of 2014, the governor of the central bank changed the allocation procedures in Trinidad and Tobago. Unbeknownst to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, no announcement, no information, no nothing, secret. Bringing more people to deal in the foreign exchange allocation. When we in the opposition found out what he had done, we called a press conference in our office, and it was the first time the country would have known that the 21-year-old stable system for allocating US dollars had been changed by the governor of the central bank. And there are some people in this country who are very conconcert. You know what that word means? Good. You know Tobago words. I heard one on the TV saying, well, you can't blame him because everybody has tried something. They could try something. So I want to ask you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, who authorized the governor of the central bank to try something with a 21-year-old stability system that has the confidence of the people and the international community? You know, by trying that something, you know what he did? Brought in people who largely have no foreign exchange of their own. Give them now a claim on the supply of foreign exchange. Whereas before, the largest bank, who had the largest customer base, would have got the largest share of the foreign exchange and could have serviced the customers, and we're all happy. They have a new system now where you get it based on VAPs. And the two largest banks with the largest customer base don't have enough foreign exchange for their customers. So immediately a crisis develops because the customers will come to their banks and their banks can't satisfy their need. Yesterday morning I saw on television one of our one of our biggest business houses supplying medicine to the hospitals. Medicine to the hospitals. They are required to pay $2 million to bring in a batch of medicine for the hospitals from the various agents that they deal with abroad. They could only have raised $100,000. You know what that means? It means that there'll be a short supply of drugs in the hospitals. And if you don't have them in the hospitals, it means that people like me and you will die. Because those who have the means will fly out and get the treatment outside or go to the private hospitals. But John Public, who rely on the public hospitals, would never know that the supplier wanted $2 million to bring in the medication and only got $100,000. And then the governor has the unmitigated gall when this problem arises and we point it to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, to accuse us of playing politics. Well, tonight I want to say to the governor of the central bank, if your job is playing politics, our job is informing the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Today, there are many business houses in the country who cannot service their needs because the interference with the system has created instability and a lack of confidence. People are going to lose their jobs or lose their businesses. And once the black market begins to grow, it's like a cancer, it never goes away. Because right now, whereas before in the period of stability, persons would have gone, if they have US dollars, they put it in the bank. But because you can't get out of the bank, those who have US dollars not putting it in the bank, and it's a downward spiral of availability of money. And all of that is destroying the economic potential. If you want to travel, you have to go to the bank now with your ticket and your itinerary. And if you're lucky, they will give you a couple hundred US dollars. That is what is going on. And they tell you, there's no problem. There's no problem. The country has $10 billion. Well, if it is so, why can't the lady get $15 in the bank, smart man? We were never questioning that we don't have money. What we're questioning is how you're managing the supply of money into the system. And let me put you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, on notice. Because of the development of this problem, there has been an accelerated leak of foreign exchange out of the country. Because, you see, to solve the problem that they created, they now have to keep pumping money into the system. But because people have lost confidence in the system, the money comes in the system and is now hoarded. So to avert the crisis, they've got to keep pumping more money into the system. And that money that leaks out of the system is not going to stay in Trinidad, it will find its way outside of Trinidad and Tobago. It's very simple. You get a bucket, you put a hole in the bucket and you put a hose in the bucket. The hose can pump all night. The bucket is not going to be full. So we are now in danger of losing significant amount of foreign exchange, which we otherwise would not have lost, because the central bank has interfered with the system, create a confidence crisis, and the supply of foreign exchange is now a big headache. But what does the government tell you? The government tells you, it's all right. There's no problem. There's no problem. But this will continue until the PNM comes into office and brings sanity to the affairs of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Tomorrow we go to the Parliament. I didn't plan to speak tomorrow because in our caucus we organized so that Mr. Imbert would have spoken and Mr. Dayal Singh might speak and the Chief Whip might speak and so on, and I will observe them and be part of the team. But I may have to speak tomorrow because I want to alert you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, that there are too many schools in this country for Anand Ramlogan Kamla Prasad Bisesa and the UNC to take us all for fools. The matter which is coming to the Parliament tomorrow is the Section 34 Parent Bill. A bill to amend or to abolish this same Parent Act in which Section 34 was ensconced. And as fate will have it, there was a ruling of the court, I think it was yesterday. The court ruled on a matter yesterday. And just like the Volney apology, the Attorney General went apoplectic. And is there telling the whole world, I am vindicated, the government is vindicated, and everybody should agree and bow down, and there should be no more talk of Section 34. Tonight, Attorney General, is now we talking about Section 34. Because if you and Volney, or you and the Prime Minister feel that the people of Trinidad and Tobago are stupid, let me show you how they're not stupid. What was before the judges was a case where Ish and Steve and others went to the court to tell the court that they had got away under Section 34, and the Parliament, including all of us, including me and the PNM, convened in emergency session, and we repealed Section 34 to prevent them from claiming freedom under Section 34. That is what was before the judge. And because they were suing the state, whenever you sue the state, the person who has to go and provide a defense for the state is the Attorney General. So the Attorney General had to go before the judge and put in an affidavit on the situation. So he did that. But what he put before the judge was his affidavit of his story. His story is the UNC story. The UNC story is that Section 34 was an oversight. We know that is a lie. But he put that in his story and he put it to the judge. The judges can only deal with what is before them. So if the Attorney General puts in his affidavit about oversight and whatever he puts there, that is up to the Attorney General. But something very interesting happened. The Attorney General put in this affidavit. And the people who were the beneficiaries of the main Section 34 never challenged the affidavit and never cross-examined the Attorney General. When that happens, the affidavit stands as unchallenged evidence. You have to ask yourself, people of Trinidad and Tobago, who are these people who will go to court and have an affidavit put in like that and pay millions to lawyers and nobody cross-examine the Attorney General? And here the Attorney General outside now. The affidavit was so strong and so good that it defied cross-examination. You see, if the affidavit had been cross-examined, I live near to a law school. I never went to the law school, but by association, I learned law. I grew up in Joe Rowley house. He was a fireside lawyer. And Wilfred Jack, his neighbor, was a bush lawyer. So here how I cross-examine the Attorney General. So this whole Section 34 was an oversight. You discover it after the guys went to court, you discover what's happening. Let me ask you a question. A question has been put to the Prime Minister as to why Section 34 was proclaimed. Has the country ever had an answer for that? And this government that is always wanting to tell you what wonderful things they're doing, and this wonderful law that was going to do these wonderful things to remove the backlog from the court. Did the government ever tell the country that they intended to proclaim it? When it was proclaimed on Independence Night of 2012, was the country informed that it had been proclaimed? And when the cabinet asked the Attorney General, the same person who put in the affidavit to Justice Smith, to inform the President that they're required to proclaim Section 34 because it was required to hire masters for the court, did the Attorney General realize that Section 34 had nothing to do with hiring masters for the court? And when the marchers, led by me, your humble servant, in our thousands, went up to the President's house and asked the President, and the acting President then was a big COP man, one, Mr. Hamill Smith. We asked him to look through the whole documentation and see what went wrong there. And then he wrote me a confidential letter, which I was supposed to keep confidential and never tell you, because they wanted to bury the truth under confidentiality as they have been doing all along. He told me that he examined all the documents, and to use his own words, he found nothing out of the ordinary. That was the acting President of the Republic writing to the opposition leader, telling us and binding me by a confidential letter that nothing out of the ordinary took place, because they were laying the foundation to say it was an oversight. But when I, in my little mailbox, received the cabinet note, and I read the cabinet note, I found something very out of the ordinary. I found that the cabinet had lied to the President, because the cabinet note said to the President that Section 34 requires to be proclaimed to proceed to appoint to hire masters of the Supreme Court. And I immediately realized that the people in office in the cabinet could and would do anything. Because yes, you had to hire masters sometime, but if you wanted to hire masters, you had to amend the Supreme Court of Judicature Act and not proclaim Section 34. So nobody cross-examined Mr. Ron Logan. So his testimony remained unchallenged. And the judges ruled in the context of the unchallenged testimony, in the context that they were dealing with the repeal of Section 34, not the creation of Section 34, not the use of Section 34. And yet the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago, up and down since last night, whole day, telling the country that his government has been vindicated. Well, I see no bull pistol, I see no hanging tree, and there can be no vindication under those circumstances. You see, the people of this country are being led down a road by people of low expectations. And that is why you could have heard tonight that the campaign strategy for 2015, or whenever they call the election, is to attack Keith Rowley. Well, I'm putting the people of Trinidad and Tobago on notice tonight. The next election is not about me. What can happen to me is that I will not win the election as leader of the PNM, and then the PNM will go on to elect another leader. But what about you? After 4 years of this government, how do you feel about them asking for 6 more years? They're not content to have driven you almost to distraction in the last 4 years. They're now asking for 4 more years, for 6 more years. And they believe that they will get 6 more years by attacking me. I want to put them on notice. I want to put them on notice. You can paint me however you want to paint me. I will be the voice of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. They printed a newspaper because the Express not good enough for them. The Guardian not good enough for them. The News not good enough for them. They have their own paper now called The Voice. And you know, their voice can only speak untruths. One of the voices appear in front of me today. Pure government propaganda, unadulterated lies and more lies. I took part in a march leading the PNM in the JTUM march. At the night of the march, my staff informed me that UNC operatives had put on UNC sites that there were people in Port of Spain marching with racial placards in the JTUM march in the PNM section. I immediately realized that if that was so, anybody in this country, whoever you are, if you make a racial placard and you come out in public with it, you run yourself the risk of running afoul of the Sedition Act. So, my support staff then tells me that we have pictures of these people, not in the JTUM march, but being part of the UNC demonstration done by the Parliament in front of the Parliament door on Wrightson Road. I called a press conference and I had the pictures blown up and I showed the media all the pictures of the people in front of the Parliament door. If you pass in front of the Parliament door, look up, you will see a big camera that big, covering the whole of Wrightson Road as a security item for the Parliament in front of the Parliament door. That's where they were. And the people have said, one of them came on TV and said he's a vagrant, and he walked all over Port of Spain with the march, so he would have passed a number of other cameras. Because you, the people, have spent millions of dollars putting cameras all over the country, mainly in Port of Spain. And I believe you put them there and you spent that money to see who come in town. And if you want to know who they are, and if something goes wrong, you could look and see who they are when they were there. But it's easier to, even a man with a placard, 6 or 8 of them, makes it even easier. So I said, this is unacceptable. It's a breach of the Act, the law, Sedition Act, amended last in 1976. And any citizen who does that must attract the attention of the police, and the police must do their work and investigate and prosecute anybody who did that. Because by the time I'm talking, they done launch an attack on the PNM, on me, and on Eric Williams' ashes. And Mooniland was calling on me in the rally the following day to take responsibility for somebody who wasn't even in the march. And Khadija Amin, who just want to grind up and spit out, calling on me to make a statement. And the only statement I could have made is that this is a matter for the police. Well, guess what? In The Voice, the government newspaper, is an article that police came to look for me and I wasn't available. But you know, they say every lie have a little grain of truth. The police looking for me. Yes. So the police has indicated they want to talk to me. So you understand? Somebody walk around Port of Spain with a racial placard, some of them. In the news, there's one of them who I am told went to the police. He told the TV station how he got the placard and where he went with it and so on. But the police want to talk to me. The camera in front of the Parliament is supposed to be working and would have a record of all of them, not only the placard man, but those who were organizing them for the picture and those who organized them for whatever they did. Because all of them are part of a conspiracy and they would run afoul of this Sedition Act. But the police want to talk to me. And The Voice is now publishing that the police came to my office and I wasn't there. So I should have remained in the opposition office because the police come in for me. So I gave the police an appointment for tomorrow morning. They're coming to see me tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. And I'm very curious to find out what the hell they're coming to see me for. And I will keep you informed accordingly. But you see, when I went to Parliament with the emails, and I stood in the Parliament in my space, and I told you, the people, that I had these documents, whatever they are, had them for 6 months, waiting for the presidential office to act through the Integrity Commission. And when nothing happened, I came to the Parliament and I read them all out for you, so that you would have the same information that I have. The Prime Minister then made a case that the police must investigate it. I said to you then, I do not have confidence that the police has the will or the wherewithal to investigate this matter. It is now over 1 year that prime ministerial investigation has not happened. But I tell you one thing, it's the same pattern. I was the messenger bringing the emails to the parliament. The day when I was reading the emails, calling their names, they couldn't react that day. They went home the night and they planned, and they come back the next day. Mullah came with a helmet, goggles, and overall, because he came to prove that the emails were fabrication. And he accused me of being a fabricator. And he dressed up in a fabricator outfit. And they all took the position that the criminal conduct outlined in those emails were the fabrication of the messenger. And guess what? The police came to me. Police came to me. I sat down and I was interviewed by a batch of police officers, from deputy commissioner to whoever. I cooperated. I said to them, go read the Hansard. They came to me without even reading the Hansard to see what I had said. But my lawyer taped the conversation with me and the police. The next thing I know, the police went and told the public something quite different to what happened in the meeting with me, the police. And it took Senator Rowley and his tape to come before the media to contradict the police. Suppose we had not taped that meeting. So tomorrow morning when I'm meeting them, with the police and with my lawyer, and I'll keep you informed. And since then, those who are identified in the emails, exonerating themselves, they bring in an American expert to say that this, that, and the other. They had a commissioner of police, deputy commissioner of police investigate, you got nothing. And they have a battery of lawyers lawyering the issue to death. But I'll tell you one thing. That matter is still unresolved. Because when I ask you right here in the Croisee, do you believe that what is contained in those documents, the emails and email gate, are things that this government could do? You all said yes. Today you're hearing, all around the country, you're hearing that there are ministers of government with difficulty explaining criminal activity with respect to government programs in ministries around the country. You understand? You understand? And then I have to hear the Prime Minister saying to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, don't believe your eyes, don't believe your ears, and don't believe your nose if you smell the stench coming from the government state room. Believe what they tell you. If my TV is on and my back is turned to it, and I hear the voice of the American president, I know that that is Barack Obama. If I put on my TV and I see Beyonce on TV, whether she have a short skirt or a long skirt or short hair or curly hair, I know that is Beyonce. And when I see a minister of government in room 201, whether he's hot or he's burning or he's smoking, I know that's a minister of government. But let me explain to you all why this is no laughing matter. It is for good reason. I don't have the time tonight to explain the reason, but it is for good reason why the cabinet deliberations in this country are secret. Because the cabinet deals with a series of matters that have far-reaching effects and consequences for the lives of every single person in Trinidad and Tobago. And when cabinet makes a decision, it is made by a small group of people who are authorized by you, the people, to be in that cabinet room, and together they are joined and severally bound to make that decision on your behalf. It is a dangerous thing if there's any person in that room who is beholding or is being blackmailed by somebody outside of the room. And when a person is serving in the cabinet and they would have done something of which they are ashamed of, or something that could cost them the job, they are exposed to being blackmailed. And the person who has got them in that position could say to them, I want this of you, or I want that of you. I want to know this of you, or I want to know that of you. And because you are afraid that they will expose what you want to hide, you now become a threat to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And tonight I want to say here in the Croisee that we have the only government in the world that has a prime minister who would have seen what she had seen and decide that she will tolerate in her cabinet a person who is so compromised and poses a danger to cabinet government in Trinidad and Tobago. Any prime minister, regardless of your party, if you end up in that situation, the minister has to go. In fact, the minister should never put his prime minister in that situation. And then we have in this country a minister who you see, who you hear, and if you could have smelled the smoke in the TV, you would know what it is. Telling you, talk to me, lawyer. What I'm saying to the minister tonight, you are not any common or garden criminal from Enterprise, Diego Martin or Laventil. You are Minister of Government of Trinidad and Tobago, and we ain't talking to your lawyer. We are talking to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And we are saying tonight on behalf of all the people of Trinidad and Tobago, any minister who finds him or herself in that situation, out of office, leave our business alone. And then after almost 2 weeks, I am watching the Prime Minister telling the country, I have asked Mr. Roberts for a report and I have not yet received a response. Then Prime Minister, you too should go to and go now. Because I don't know what kind of Prime Minister you are, where you could be asking a minister for a report in a case like this, and the minister could be doing what you told the president. The minister learned from you. Because when President Max Richards asked you about Section 34, you did the same thing. You didn't respond to him. So the minister learned from you. And maybe might have told you that too. And you're going to tell this country in all seriousness that you asked the minister and you haven't got a response? Well, Prime Minister, since you don't know who it is in the video, ask Rachel Price, because she knows who it is. And she has adjectival clauses to go with it too, to make sure you know it's who. So tonight, putting all joke aside, we are not prepared to continue to tolerate this nonsense of governance. I told you the other day, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has abandoned her post. And criminals have taken over Trinidad and Tobago. I say no more on that matter. I say no more on that matter. Except to let you know that on behalf of the PNM, on behalf of all of us, as we go towards that day of judgment, as we go towards the next election, I place my confidence in the innate decency of all the people of Trinidad and Tobago who are by and large decent, ordinary, honest citizens who want good for themselves and good for their children and grandchildren. And I have every confidence that those people in the majority will reject what this government is and what it's offering to you. And they're asking me, what will you do? What will you do if you become the government of Trinidad and Tobago? Because there are those concerned ones who want to say, all of them is the same thing. Well, I'm not like that, and the PNM is not like that, and our record is not like that. Judge us on our record as we judge them on their record. The first thing that we will do, as I'm doing now, is recruiting people of talent, people of integrity, people with a track record, and people who give the people of Trinidad and Tobago the best chance to get the best management system, and that's what we're doing now, recruit good people. And secondly, we will then proceed to have a small cabinet which will allow the parliament to function properly, so that when reports like the one that is there now, that Auditor General report, replete from top to bottom with all kinds of matters requiring attention and being unattended because all the parliamentarians are in the cabinet or in the opposition on part-time. We will ensure that there are parliamentarians in the parliament outside of the cabinet to ensure that there's management of your affairs and a public service to go with it. And the first thing that the PNM government will do, the first piece of legislation that will be passed by the PNM government, I have the draft in my hand here now. It is whistleblower legislation. We have a draft here to pass into law when the PNM comes into office. To ensure that all the waste, all the wrongdoing that is now taking place in government as a matter of course, that we put in law arrangements so those who know, those who see could talk and be protected and even be rewarded for protecting your assets. We have a draft, and I have a draft here, and I give you the commitment that we will enact whistleblower legislation. We have been working on it, looking around the world for models, see what other countries have done, and come up with our draft right now. I haven't got the time tonight to go into all the reforms, but as we now have come past our internal election, we have come past the THA election, we have come past the local election, as we now have in our sights the tape of the general election, night after night, day after day, we'll be outlining to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, what we intend to do when we come into office. Stand by for the PNM. The PNM is on the march. And the people of Trinidad and Tobago, there is hope. There is hope. There is hope. Keep hope alive. So tonight, I want to tell Alan Lamlogan tonight, if you intend to come to Parliament tomorrow to talk that tortishness to talk today about vindication, I invite you to come there and talk it, because I want to join you to put on Hansard what you have done to this country. The full extent of Section 34 must go on the record of Hansard as a day and a period of infamy in Trinidad and Tobago. An indelible stain, a government that sold its mandate, and the only thing that came out of Section 34, that conspiracy, is that persons who should have gone before the court never faced the court in the way they should have done. And the Attorney General didn't appeal the case and told us that, told the court in fact, told Justice Budu Singh that a trial was imminent in Trinidad and Tobago. And based on that, there was a ruling that Trinidad and Tobago was the best place for them to be tried. And while that was being put before the judge, to get a ruling of that nature, the Attorney General knew and was participating in the creation of Section 34, which meant that those gentlemen wouldn't be tried abroad and wouldn't be tried here in Trinidad and Tobago, a get out of jail card free. And then he has the gall to get up in front of this country and talk about vindication. Vindication. As if you don't know the meaning of vindication. If that is vindication, then I tell you, if that is vindication, we don't want to be vindicated or to be associated with that kind of vindication. Our country has been harmed. Our country has been wronged. We have been damaged right down to the point now where you can't go to the bank and get $2 in foreign currency. You can't walk on the street. Every boy has a gun. Every girl has something else. And of course, the hospitals have no drugs because the importers can't buy it. And they want to come and tell you what they're running on performance. Come meet the PNM, let's run on performance. Call the election anytime. The sooner the better. We have had enough. So tonight, you join the campaign of the PNM to the next general election. No more. No more. No more. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.